Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Trinis Abroad, the podcast where we discuss our real life experiences of living here in Canada for the last 5 years. This episode may be a little controversial, that's why it's entitled What We Don't Miss About Trinidad.
Question number one. Is Canada safer?
Yes, it is. Canada is much safer than Trinidad and Tobago. The thing is, what was a big shock for us when we just moved in, I just locked my door and there was one deadbolt. I looked at Anthony and I was like, where are the other locks? Do we need to go to Home Depot and buy more locks and install more locks? Put latches? Because I remember back home in Trinidad, there were multiple deadbolts, there was burglar proof. There's a lot of nuts and bolts and you're almost like you're locking yourself inside a dungeon before you go to bed at night. You're constantly looking outside, seeing if anyone is in or around your premises. It was a big shock for us, but here is way different. There aren't fences, barricades, walls separating houses. Everything is fairly open, and a lot of people actually park their cars outside on covered garage.
One of the advantages, as well as living in Canada with less crime, is that you find that you don't have to worry about looking over your shoulder. And I remember this was always the case in Trinidad. I remember every time I would leave my house and I would park my car literally anywhere, day or night. You have to kind of hurry to get out the door, lock the door, get to the front door to your destination. And I find that it's just a little bit more at ease here. You don't need to worry about that.
Now, that doesn't go without saying that we aren't safe, we aren't reckless, we aren't careless. We still have our mentality of our looking over our shoulders, being cautious of our surroundings, who's watching us, because crime is everywhere. But yes, we don't have to worry as much here, but we still are very cautious when we are in and around dark, lonely areas, which we tend not to be because of our instincts, and we always try to keep safe at all times. Okay, now on to question number 2. Is banking easier?
Banking is definitely way easier here than it is in Trinidad. I remember a lot of times when I was in Trinidad and I would have to go to the bank, I would have to leave work substantially early. And I'm not saying like an hour early. Like depending on what you need to do in the bank in Trinidad, you need to leave like half day to do anything. And here everything is done online. We have rarely had to go in a physical bank. I think we've gone in probably 4 or 5 times in the 5 years that we have lived here. It's so easy. It's so convenient. And you can literally do anything online. And as well, did you know that there are banks in Canada that open late and they even open on weekends? Yes. So it's very convenient for persons who work different hours, different shifts. You don't need to worry about having to take time off to go to the bank.
What about banking here, or even applying through an application, applying for a loan, applying for a line of credit, applying to buy a large purchase? In Trinidad, I realized that you have to submit a lot of unnecessary documents, a lot of documents that you may not even have on your person, or you may not even have a list of what is required. You go in with a lot of things that you think are required, and they're asking you for a lot of 2 forms of ID, your past mailing address. They're asking you for a lot of unnecessary information that you may not even know. Here is way different. All you basically need is your SIN, your SIN number on you. You could even apply online or even over the phone. It's very easy and convenient. Another thing that is very different here is that I remember in Trinidad when I needed to deposit a check, it takes 5 business days, 5 working days, even 2 to 3 weeks. Here, I could even deposit a check on my app on my phone and it's deposited immediately back into my bank account, which was a big shock for us. And it's just to tell you how efficient and how effective the banking here is compared to Trinidad. Another note about banking is that the foreign currency and foreign exchange here is more readily available compared to back home in Trinidad. That's something I don't miss because here I could walk into the ATM, I could even go to the counter, and I could get foreign currency. I could even get USD cash out of the ATM without even lining up. And you could even walk in without making an appointment and get foreign currency, euros, or even foreign exchange that may not be available in Trinidad. That's something that is way different here because when we were moving to Canada, we had to put our name on a waiting list, and it was for a couple months just to get like 200 Canadian. I don't really miss that because here the foreign exchange is readily available. Yes, you have to still pay exchange fees, but the thing is, it's more readily available to us.
One of the other things I definitely don't miss about Trinidad is the complications of the credit card billing cycles. So I remember being in Trinidad. Let's say if you have a credit card and the bank gives you, let's just say 2000 US, and maybe you spend the 2000 US on a vacation because we know vacations are expensive, and you use the 2000 US within the billing cycle, but you're able to repay it. That doesn't mean that you have 2000 extra US available within the same cycle. I remember being told that even though you repaid it, you had to wait for the billing cycle to end, for a new billing cycle to begin, to even begin to start using the new balance, which makes absolutely no sense. Here, it is completely different. Here, if you use your limit on your credit card, you pay it back, you get it back within the same cycle. You don't need to wait for the next cycle. Again, the funds are more readily available here. You have access to a little bit more funds, so you're not limited in terms of what you can do.
And what about contactless payment? We barely even need to walk around with cash. I remember in Trinidad, a lot of places take cash only for a lot of large expenses and a lot of payments. I heard recently that for paying your property tax, you have to walk around with cold hard cash. That is absolutely ridiculous in my opinion. I hear people are stacking their cash under their pillows still, under their mattresses, hoping for a rainy day. Here, I barely even know what cash looks like. You could even pay with your phone. You could load your cards and attach them to your phone, and your phone has the ability to just tap. That's how convenient it is here, and it's way different, and I like it. It puts yourself less at risk for getting robbed and that kind of stuff. So that's something that I don't miss.
Question number 3, is life here just more convenient?
Yes, in my opinion, life is very convenient here. I think the systems are built to take your cash as soon as you're even ready to pay. I remember that in terms of convenience, I had to renew my driver's license recently, and the drive test center, the center that I needed to renew my license, was available at night. So I didn't have to take a day off. As we mentioned earlier, I went in 7:15, and by 7:25 I was out of there with my driver's permit, my new driver's permit in my hand. That is something that is totally unheard of, because I remember lining up for my passport in Trinidad 6:15 in the morning AM. Outside is dark, it's cold, and they're letting like 5 people when there was a line of 20 something people, and they said like, no, we lock off for the day, and that was like around 7 o'clock. I'm like, why is that even allowed, or why would we even allow those things to happen? Here, you can even apply for your passport online. You could apply for your PR renewal of your ID card and stuff online. They make a lot of things available online because it's a lot of people, and to have everyone go in physically will just overburden the system. Here is millions of people lining up for these services. So that is something that I don't miss. I don't miss lining up. I don't miss putting myself at risk early in the morning, lining up outside of a closed gate in the wee hours. That's something that I really don't miss.
On the topic of convenience, what is better here is that you can literally go do any of your errands. If you have any appointments to do, chances are those places are going to be open 7 days a week. Yes, so grocery stores are open 7 days a week. They even close very late. Even the malls are open 7 days a week. And I remember being in Trinidad, malls are normally closed on Sundays. But here it is open 7 days a week. As you mentioned, like even some banks are opened on weekends to accommodate persons. So, a weekend, sometimes it feels like just another weekday because it's business as usual. More persons are out on not just a Saturday, but you will see a lot of Canadians going out on a Sunday as well to do their errands, because again, people have different hours, they work different days, and the system has to be able to accommodate persons. What I like, especially, so most grocery stores, they would close around 9 p.m. But the one grocery store that you can go to that is open up until 11 p.m. is Walmart. Walmart literally has everything, so you can go there to do your groceries. If you have to get any other items, you can go there anytime, and that's just the kind of convenience we have here compared to being back in Trinidad.
And in Canada, we do have access to Amazon Prime shipping, which is at your doorstep in 1 to 2 days. This is something that I really enjoy because sometimes I really need an item. Maybe it's an emergency, maybe it's something that I really need as a last minute gift, within a day or two, it's at my doorstep. Not like in Trinidad, I remember having to get a skybox and I pay online and I estimate myself, okay, I'm going to get this in at least 2 weeks. And then when it comes in, the Skybox office tells me, oh, that price you paid online, you have to pay an additional price to clear it at customs. We're not sure what customs cost is going to cost us. And then they charge you X amount. And then the next time you say, here, I want to buy this item one more time. And then the custom cost went up. So you have to cater for this price varying due to customs, tariffs, clearing the border, a lot of different things that will come into play. And it's just inconvenient. That's something that I don't miss because when I need to buy something and I really need to get it, yes, I could go out to different places, but something that I need online will be shipped directly to our doorstep.
What I definitely don't miss is, let's say you purchase an item in Trinidad, but maybe it's not the right item, or maybe it's a piece of clothing and you want to return it, and that was never an option in Trinidad. Here, you can return literally anything. I was blown away by, just observing Canadians and when it comes to returns. Like, I feel like people just like to buy items here to just return it. And there are a lot of stores here that they will accept returns, no questions asked. And one of the good examples is Costco. Like, the line is always really long. I remember seeing someone return a rotisserie chicken. That just blew my mind because I never knew you can return ready cooked food. But you literally can return anything. So I feel like, a lot of Canadians just buy items to use it, especially let's say around the holidays. And they have their events or their gatherings and then they return it. They put it back in their packaging and they return it the next day and get back their money. And that's insane. And then some of the stores as well, we have found that they have very generous return rates. And one good example is IKEA. I remember initially when we first moved and we got a lot of furniture from IKEA, and they told us, you have 365 days to return the items. And I'm like, what? We have a whole year. So imagine you can go into a store here, you can, let's say, go to IKEA, you buy, let's say, a couch and you use it for a couple of months, you don't like it, you return it, and then maybe you get another, or another couch or a better set, and you keep repeating the same process. So that just blew my mind, and it's just a matter of the convenience. That is way better here.
On another point, stepping away from the daily life, I'm talking about work life now. Our experiences from manufacturing, and we have that experience of technical support back home in Trinidad. When we needed to get a machine serviced, I remember we had to call Costa Rica, Brazil, Europe, United States to get a technician to fix this specialized machine. But the thing is, here, I realized when I started my first job, we had to get tech support and the machine was down. And I just called and I was like, hey, this machine is down. When can I get this technician to come in to fix it because we really need them? He was like, no problem. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I was like, you're located nearby? He's like, yes, I'm right down the street. So that's something that is way convenient here. A lot of the big tech companies, mechanics, specialty equipment, machinery, servicing, mechanics, maintenance specialists are really nearby. Because the thing is, there's a lot of competition here so that they have a better owners to support you and support your business, because chances are if they don't, you could always go to someone else. And that's something that is way different here. We get a lot of specialties and access to a lot of professions that are readily available. And back home in Trinidad, I think we had to go out overseas or to get these things done. And that's something that was really amazing to me. Even in terms of content creation, we have a lot of brands here. We have a lot of tech support in terms of drones and camera equipment. A lot of things are manufactured in Canada. You could even call online to get spare parts. It's delivered to your home. This is something that was really an eye-opening experience for me, and something that I really enjoy. Okay, so now moving on to question number 4. How does everyday living compare?
I would say when it comes to groceries in Canada, we have access to a lot more variety versus back in Trinidad. A lot of produce is grown and harvested in Canada versus in Trinidad. A lot of our food items are imported, which means it's more expensive. There are some items in the grocery here that would be a little bit more costly, like such as if you're buying organic, but that wasn't even an option like back in Trinidad. I remember I would never see organic, in Trinidad. So definitely, I think it's a plus, being exposed to the wide variety of items. I remember being in Trinidad, one of the grocery items I always used to look forward to buying every week was fresh berries. And I remember the last time I was there, I think like a carton of strawberries was probably like around $50. TT was $60. And, in Canada, it's like on, I would say a good day, it ranges between, like $5. So that just like blows my mind, how much more variety you can access here. So there are a lot more healthier options here you can access in terms of like food.
Now, Canada is the home of immigrants, and that brings a lot of variety in terms of cuisine, ingredients. A lot of ethnicities and a lot of people from different countries come here and settle. They open their own grocery stores. So sometimes there's a particular grocery store we go to just to get noodles and like specific noodles from like Thailand and like Japan and China. There are aisles and aisles of noodles and different like ramen and different styles and different ways to cook them. Sometimes we're just feeling, we saw an ad on like Instagram and stuff, and we're like, hey, maybe we want to cook this week, and then you can't get that in a regular grocery store. We go to these specialty grocery stores. Even what we like about here as well is that these big box grocery stores, they have like a special aisle just for international cuisine. That's where we get our Caribbean spices and a lot of Asian spices as well. So sometimes, like, that's something that I don't see back home. Yes, it has the Caribbean stuff, which is like a normal thing. If you see something like on an ad and you want to try this, you can't really get that because it's limited in Trinidad, no offense. But here we could actually go to different areas, different towns, and we could get these items more readily available, and it's the authentic thing. Sometimes we even taste different foods because it tastes way different coming from the source.
When it comes to ease of access, one of the things unfortunately I don't miss about Trinidad is that here we have self-checkout counters. So Canada, as we mentioned, has millions of people, and to avoid overcrowding, a lot of the big box stores, so like the Walmarts, department stores, even the groceries have self-checkout aisles, and that is super convenient. You can cash out, all of your items, and it's very fast, it's very efficient, and that's something I wish Trinidad had more of.
Well, one of the biggest things that I don't miss about Trinidad is traffic. I don't miss the traffic, the constant traffic, the one way in, one way out kind of mentality. Here is way bigger. Yes, it's less dense. There is traffic in certain high populated dense areas like the Torontos, the Vancouvers, the Montreal downtown. But the thing is about here is that there are multiple routes to get to your destination. So sometimes what we do is like we use Google Maps. And when we're getting to our location, it tells us, hey, we found a faster route to get to your location because maybe there's an accident, there's a road closure, there's road work. And we take these routes and it's faster. So there isn't a one way out, one way in. And that's something that I really like about here. There are even multiple modes of transport to get to your destination. So sometimes if we don't want to drive, we could take the train. You could take like subways and stuff. And that's something that I really like about here. It's convenient. It really gets you in and out of your destination fast and efficient. Okay, so now on to our fifth and final question. What's the biggest lifestyle change?
Well, if you're Trini, then you know that we love Bacchanal. And that is one thing I do not miss about Trinidad now living in Canada. There is, I want to say, no Bacchanal or less Bacchanal. People are on their own beat here. They are always on the go. They don't have time to mind your business. They don't have time to look at you and criticize you for what you're wearing, how you're speaking. Everyone is just on, they're just trying to survive at the end of the day. That just brings a whole lot of peace, I would say, as an immigrant. There's just less drama. One of the other things that I definitely don't miss about being in Trinidad is that in Trinidad, because it's so small, like no matter where you would go, you would always run into someone you know. So you're working for a company in Trinidad and chances are you're going to end up meeting up someone you know somewhere outside of work in Trinidad, because that's just how small it is. And sometimes that might not always be a good thing, because maybe you don't want to see, every single person that you may be working with, or there might be some persons that you just don't like, and you don't want to run into them when you're, out on a weekend having a good time. In Canada, I can say that you will probably very rarely ever see your coworker outside of work. It is so big here, and everyone lives in different cities and different regions. It's very rare to run into someone that you know, unless they live like literally in your neighborhood.
So we are Canadian citizens and we got our Canadian passport. And I could tell you from first-hand experience, traveling with your Canadian passport is way different from traveling with your Trinidadian passport through the US border to Europe, back and forth through Canada. It is way different. It is more convenient. When I have my Canadian passport, I'm actually placed in a different line and I'm treated differently. Yes, I'm asked questions when I'm crossing the US border. I'm not saying I'm not asked questions, but it's a way different experience. And if you are a Trinidadian and you have experience going through the US border, you will know what I'm talking about. Passing through the US border and even other borders, international borders, is more convenient having your Canadian passport.
Living in one of the major cities in Canada also gives you access to international events. It gives you access to go to things like concerts. I remember being in Trinidad, so, sometimes you would have to plan a vacation around a concert, in either maybe the US or some other country. And, luckily living within close proximity, to Toronto or any other major city in Canada, we get access to a lot of these concerts and a lot of sporting events.
This brings us to the end of today's episode. I hope you enjoyed. Stay tuned for more episodes of Trinis Abroad. If you are new to the channel, I know we got a lot of new subscribers recently. Be sure to like and subscribe and comment and, submit your questions of future episodes at what you want to listen to and what we want us to discuss. So please like, subscribe, and comment, and we'll see you next time for another episode of Trinis Abroad. Bye.